domestic abuse happens so much in the shadows, as you talked about during the case here, and ultimately to prove those counts, it took testimony from friends because there weren't the official reports of abuse and there weren't photos of bruises. Can you speak to, in America, the prevalence of domestic abuse and the importance of testimony that her friends gave in order to prove that count?
I think, first of all, the awareness, and you may recall during the course of the trial the testimony of the expert witness, Melissa Skaya, who I think provides an insight I think that many individuals don't have regarding domestic violence and the relationships that go on in those particular situations. So from our aspect, it was very important to enlighten the jury and shed that information to the jury so they could view Madeline and Madeline's story from that perspective and not just from a normal average person's perspective. So that was very important. And as you indicated, domestic violence doesn't occur in the parking lot. Sometimes it does, but a lot of it happens behind closed doors and outside the presence of others, including family members and friends, and the difficulty it is sometimes for a victim of domestic abuse and domestic violence to come forward and speak about what is going on. And I can't emphasize enough for communities and all of us to support those types of organizations that provide the assistance and the advocacy for victims of domestic violence, so they have an opportunity, maybe not the police department or law enforcement or a family member, but there's somebody there to listen to them and what's going through and provide them the necessary assistance so they can work their way through this very difficult situation.
And could
You've
you also
been practicing law for a long time. How does this case size up to all the other ones you've prosecuted throughout your career?
I've had quite a few cases. I've been doing it for 40 years. I mean, it's certainly in the top number of cases as far as size and complexity. And what's changed now so dramatically, and you may have observed it in the courtroom, is digital evidence, the cell phone information. Our lives are on our cell phones now. And financial data and text conversations and photos and images, where we've been, location. And I think that is really the new wave of law enforcement and prosecution is electronic data that we now have access to that we didn't have access to 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago.
And I'm curious, now reflecting back, do you feel like there was one piece of evidence or testimony that really convinced the jury?
No, it's the collective. As I indicated to the jury during the course of, look at the whole picture, everything. When you go through your deliberations and the like, I don't believe there was one particular piece of evidence. Obviously, there were some perhaps more significant. The text message, the conversation in December of 2022, which I think really shed a light on the relationship and what was actually going on between Mr. Fravel and Madeline Kingsbury.
those additional charges that you added on the indictment, I'm sure took a lot more work for you personally, and but it was very important to the family to have the mandatory life sentence that comes with it?
It was based upon our review. When you initially get a case, an investigation, you have 36 hours to make some decisions. And as the chief indicated to you, it was an extensive investigation. And a lot of times you don't have all that information in front of us. The grand jury comes several weeks later. Now we've had time to digest some of that information and that investigation, and then we can make a more appropriate decision to what particular charges to present to the grand jury.
What was your reaction then to just the guilty across the board after all that work and working with the family and knowing that they really want those higher counts too?
I can't say enough our appreciation for the jury in this case, the Blue Earth County jury. They were attentive throughout the trial. They followed the judge's instructions, and that's how our system of justice works. As far as the family, I'll reserve that for sentencing and some of those comments regarding sentencing and the impact it's had.
There should be no surprises at sentencing, though, right? Pretty
No, it is a mandatory life sentence without parole for the first-degree premeditated murder. For the first-degree murder past pattern, he would be eligible for release after 30 years. There's no guarantee of that. And then the second degrees, he'll only be sentenced on one.
And Zach Bauer spent hours trying to dismantle you and Christina Gillespie's arguments. What would you say was the biggest challenge in this case for you guys?
The biggest challenge was the amount of information. As we indicated, just hours, hundreds of hours, and 10,000s and thousands of computer entries and Cellbrite, from the Cellbrite reports and the phone reports and the like, and trying to organize that and try to do it in a manner that is representative of the case, especially in a final argument. You don't want to be talking up there for 4 or 5 hours. You got to get it, and you got to try to figure out how to focus on what is important, and that's why we focus on motive and opportunity and some of the additional information.
How does this feel for you to get this verdict as someone who's working closely with this? I know your closing statement yesterday, there was some emotion. Was that something you're just conveying to the jury? Is it something you felt yourself as well?
Oh, you always feel it. As a prosecutor, you always feel it. I mean, you get very connected with law enforcement. In the hours you get connected with them, you get connected with the family, and there's a sense of a person. It gets personal, and sometimes that does come out. And then you take a drink of water and you move on.
And so, Phil, was there probably going to be a case even if Maddie was never recovered?
I can't answer that. That's something we'd have to evaluate at the time. I've had cases of that nature, and you just have to evaluate all the information you have in front of you.
But as to the investigators that kept on working and eventually
I
brought
can't.
Maddie home,
I can't say enough. I can't say enough from all the cases that I've worked throughout my career: the Winona Police Department, Winona Sheriff's Department, the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, and all the Fillmore Sheriff's Department. Everyone in this case did an amazing job, and I'm proud of them, and I'm proud of the work that they did. And also to the Winona County Attorney's Office, the staff back there at home that we call up late at night and can you get this to us and get that to us, and the community of Winona. When you drive into town and you're for a hearing and you see the blue ribbons down the street, that kind of inspires you a little bit to put your best foot forward and do what needs to be done.
And now you don't work for the Winona County Attorney's
No.
Office. You were brought in specifically for this case. What made you want to take this case and try it?
I retired in 2019, and like I've done some work on the side. I was contacted by the Winona County Attorney's Office, briefed on the case, and it's just something when you do this work for as long as you do it, there's certain cases you get a calling for, and this is one that you get a calling for.
And what was that calling?
Madeline. And it just the whole circumstances, knowing that you have the support of the law enforcement community and the like. That's primarily it. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
So
Thank you,
much.
guys.
Thank you. Have a safe drive back.